Deze is hartstikke awesome Jeff.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Inside Scoop with Alex and Jeff. I am Alex Dingman.
I'm Jeff Doss, and this is the Inside Scoop, and we have our special guest, Derrick Bisbee. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing awesome.
Loving
Awesome. We're excited for you to join us. We've been talking about this for a while, so this is going to be a fun one. First off, thank you so much for being an insider and following our show and joining in and always adding a lot of good content with, and engagement with us, because that's what's been so much fun about this. So
I appreciate it. Thanks for the invite. I have to say, though, Alex's welcome, everybody, is the bomb. I love it.
It is.
It's the best intro, I think.
Now, time out. Now, did you hear, when you listen to the pod, or the recorded version, that little kid?
Is that one of your kids?
That's his daughter.
And it was one because it was like season 1 of Inside Scoop, where it was like when I was doing it in my basement when I had good internet. Oh man, I'd be glad I'm not there anymore. Right? She kept coming downstairs, and so finally, this was like in the Skype days. All right.
Yeah.
And then Trav was like, have her do the intro. And so then she just said the intro.
Yeah.
Now she doesn't believe me. When I tell her that that's her, she doesn't believe me.
That's funny. I was actually going to comment on that, because I was going to say it's actually Jeff, not Jess. But
I know.
She does say
you can't get
Alex
rid of it
and
now.
Jess. But it's so great. Yeah, it's hilarious.
I don't hear it as Jess, so
yeah, that's good.
I think most people hear it as Jeff.
Yeah. It was just so funny, man. It was awesome, because when she did that, she did it and then immediately all right, good night, I'm going to bed.
Yeah, that's exactly how it went.
Yeah, it was awesome. All right, guys. So as you know, we are sponsored by the Virtual Fight Tour, and man, we got we got 2 weeks, I think, for the VFT Europe versus the Americas. Man, this is going to be exciting. I'm so pumped up for this.
It's going to be pretty epic. There's a lot of big names going to be there.
Yes, there is.
Well, I think pretty confidently we can say this is going to be probably the best tournament of the year.
Especially for point fighting. Yeah, definitely.
For point fighting.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. We can't say that guaranteed for forms, because it's still a WACO event and it's forms and they're improving, but it ain't an ASCA tournament, and they're the best.
Well, just it's going to rival an Irish Open of a couple of years ago when everybody would go.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have a lot of big people there.
Yeah. And what's crazy right now, all right, we've been talking about this and thinking October's packed, but if you think about all the events going on right now, they're all around the same general area, right? Now, they have the junior WACOs going on in Italy. Okay, yep. That's kind of the furthest one out of all these events going on.
Right.
Because WKC next week is in Ireland, Killarney. The next week you have Bristol.
Which is dope that they're in Killarney, by the way.
Yeah. And then the next week you have Wales for WKU. So it's just insane. All of them are all around that same, area, in many ways. It's all the UK. So you got 3 weeks of just wild action. Really, you could just go now and just stay the whole month if you wanted to, right?
You could go for 2 or 3 weeks and hit 3 tournaments.
Yeah.
Let's go stay the whole month.
That's nuts. Yeah. That's nuts.
Who's got all that disposable income and job security with no kids?
Yeah.
None of us.
Exactly.
Yeah, no. One thing that was announced today, which is really cool, and of course, I think most of us called it on these. You definitely did, Alex, on the Europe one, on the coaches, right? So Troy Benz will be the U.S. coach.
That's a good one.
I think we all kind of agreed, with his experience and his connection with those guys. And he's been doing a great job with the U.S. team, in the top 10 USA team. and the Waco juniors and stuff. So he's going to be there. And then also, we got Dave Heffernan from Ireland that's going to be the coach for the Europe team. So great stuff. Alex, what do you got to say about that?
So I think with Troy, it's fantastic choice, and because Troy, from a fighter's perspective, if he is speaking to another fighter, he brings credibility, he brings experience, and he's a relatable guy, which is super important. So, with that, like I haven't had a ton of personal conversations with Troy, but I pay attention, right?
Yeah,
I'm always paying attention.
Same,
right?
same.
And he's just so good at his coaching. Like, he doesn't overcoach, he doesn't yell, doesn't scream, but he's different for everybody, right? So he's definitely had a fair amount of experience, which is great. I can't think of any. I was starting to think like, oh man, if it wasn't Troy, who would it be? Right? I mean, you'd have to get one of the all-stars. Maybe you'd have to get Jack in there, to do that.
Jack, or another one we've talked about lately, and especially between us and our group.
I know who you're going to say. Go ahead and say
Walker.
it. Chris Walker was the one I was thinking, right? Yep. Chris, man, we'll have to do another episode. We talk about Chris Walker.
We just talk about Chris, yeah.
Chris Walker is really, he's saving. I don't want to say saving sport, but it could be to a certain degree. He's bringing a certain amount of coaching and training that fighters are seeking out in him, which is amazing. It's fantastic.
Right. He's actually going to be in Charlotte this weekend doing a seminar. So if you guys can get to Charlotte, message me for more information. It's worth. I mean, there's so many people going there, but it's worth it just to be around him. So.
Well, Chris has so much credit in everything. I mean, he's done everything, from traditional to creative forms, weapons.
Yep.
He's fought at the highest level. He's done
every
MMA,
single aspect of Waco.
jiu-jitsu.
I think he's done every one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he has, he's somebody that can speak on almost any subject and have credit.
Yeah.
And not just have credit, but have championship level performance.
Right. And pedigree. I mean, his instructor and just,
Yeah. He's always surrounded himself with high level people,
Yeah.
So.
I don't know anybody who don't like him. Look at this guy. Wasn't even the coach. We're talking more about him.
Yeah.
that shows you how liked he is.
Yeah.
But let's go to the other side.
Yeah. Let's
talk about Dave. Dave Heffernan, I think, is slam dunk choice. All right.
Yep.
So there are very good coaches. I mean, all throughout Europe, they're very good. But it's challenging because of, let's just be honest, the accents, right? It's challenging within the States to really understand what people are saying sometimes when you're being coached by somebody who's never really coached you before. It's tough to get. So I would say the top 3 coaches in Europe are Dave Heffernan, Esteban Corrali, and Sean Vera. Well, Sean Vera can't do it because it's his event, right? And Esteban Corrali, it's challenging because of the accent. So, bang, it's Dave Heffernan. That guy is so smart, right? And I'll give you a tiny little nugget. In 2018, now I had gotten a chance to train at his facility before in Tala, Ireland, which is, that's a fighter's gym. He's a fighter's coach. It was a really cool experience. So in 2018, I was watching how he was coaching his guys. Well, I'd already been doing that, but specifically because I knew that Ross Cook was going to be fighting Roman Brundle a couple of times, right? So I'm like, man, what's he gonna tell him? What's he gonna do this? What I found so interesting, and we all know Raymond Daniels's fighting pedigree and performance. It's the best ever of all time. He's the best, right? And we know that he's a smart coach. Okay. So I struggled being coached by him because personally, I just couldn't comprehend what he was trying to tell me. And it was my fault. But so I found it interesting that Ray pulled Ross to one side of the building and said, hey, I want you doing X, Y, and Z. 10 minutes later, Dave pulls Ross to the other side of the building and tells him the exact same thing. And he was like, it was crazy. Now, at the end of that tournament, if people don't know what happened in that tournament, they went into overtime for the Irish Open Grand Champion final, right? And just to be able to fight Roman with his legs is a very challenging task. And he had a blueprint, right? Now, you could say you have a blueprint against a great kicker. That doesn't mean shit sometimes. Right? Sometimes don't mean shit. I remember someone telling me one time I was fighting Ray. They're like, "Hey man, don't let him blitz you." Oh, really? Thank you. What great advice.
Yeah.
Thank you, Captain Obvious.
So glad you let me know this. I thought Jason would be like, "Hey man, watch out for his leg." Oh, wow. Thank you. Wouldn't have thought of that one. Right? Watch out for his leg. Yeah. All right. Thumbs up, buddy. Right? So it's not coaching like that. So I'm just really impressed by that. I think Dave Heffernan was a slam dunk number one choice. I don't want to take up too much time, but I'm really impressed to see what happens with this now. I think this is going to be so much fun.
So guys, go to Yeah, I know. Let's go to Virtual Fight Tour. Go to Juventex and look it up and get your tickets now. You know, I mean, that's a slam dunk and easy one to get. The other one that you and I talked about, we're big fans of this weekend. This is another big one. Is the third fight between Bada Hari and Alistair Overeem. This is going to be nuts. So Glory's doing a card, and it's on their website. So go and check that out. We're big kickboxing fans. We will talk about that next week too.
Who do you got in that one between Alistair Overeem and Bada Hari?
I want Bada Hari to win. He needs it.
Heck yeah.
I mean, I want Bada Hari to win. I don't know. I've seen Alistair get knocked out too much lately. So
honestly, no, I haven't been following Glory.
Man, these guys are even pre-Glory. You have to go look at. When did they fight?
In K1, yeah, it was in K1.
I've seen Overeem fight, yeah.
The last time Overeem fought, he won the Grand Prix, beating one of the guys he beat was Bada Hari. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
So Bada Hari's got to get even.
They
both have a win. So this is the
do they? Okay.
Yeah.
I think Bada Hari's got the latest one, but it was so long ago. It's over 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was over 10 years ago. Yeah. So these guys are both, from similar areas, from similar backgrounds. But Bada Hari stayed with kickboxing.
He's done MMA, and I don't think Bada Hari's done anything except for kickboxing.
He's never done. No. No.
He's a kickboxer.
Yeah. The thing with Bada Hari, with Overeem, was he was the Dream World Champion for MMA and was a K1 World Champion for kickboxing at the same time, which is nuts. And then he was also the Strikeforce Heavyweight Champion, I think, too, before he moved over to UFC. So yeah, it's gonna be wild. So this is a cool one. And then of course they have a lot of other guys that, if you watch the kickboxing card, you're gonna be entertained because they just go at it. And it's 3-minute rounds. So it's super fast paced. It's not slow. It doesn't take too long. So
those guys don't fight slow anyway.
No, they don't.
Just go watch yourself some Bada Hari highlights, and you're gonna be like, this guy actually exists. This is a real.
I've been watching the Karate Combat, and I really enjoyed that because it's constant activity.
Correct.
I really enjoyed that quite a bit.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
I got a little side note. So there's my wife. This is gonna sound straight. My wife's cousin, her husband. I don't know what that means to us, but whatever. We'll just call him cousin. Okay. I've never met anybody like him. He is just a combat martial arts fan. That's it. He's not a practitioner. He doesn't do it. He's a personal trainer, and he's just a combat martial arts fan, right? So I just was talking with somebody one time, and I was talking about maybe it might have been like Remy Bonjasky or someone like that. And kickboxing is, you know who they are? And I'm like, well, homie, I'm a martial artist. Yeah, I know these guys. And he just starts talking to me. I'm like, so what martial arts do you do? Nothing.
That's wild.
He just loves watching it. He knows more than I do, And I'm
That's
like,
cool.
my goodness.
Yeah.
But no, I think, and that's he and I just, when we last saw each other a couple weeks ago, dude, we were talking tons about karate combat. All right. And this guy's like, dude, karate combat's the real deal. It's going to be a big, big deal because that's where all the martial artists are going to feel most comfortable. That's where everything's going to start to blossom as long as the dollars are there.
Yeah. That's pretty cool that someone outside of it, looks
right?
at it that way. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
and he's a super cool guy.
Yeah.
Like he's got like the coolest like personality. You see him, he's not bald. He's just chosen to shave his head, and then his mustache, he's decided to like what do you call it? He waxes it. Like, that's cool. Everything about you. This is cool, dude. I need to be like you.
Oh man. Oh. All right, Drew. So let's get into you, man. Thank you again for joining. Let's hear your beginnings, and just let people know where you're from, the style, all that good stuff. I mean, people have seen you for years now, and they see it almost all the tournaments, but some people may not know exactly, your background. So let's hear it.
Well, I started in 1978, and my instructor, his name is Skip Ettinger, and he was what was called an uchideshi, and that's a Japanese term meaning live-in student. He lived in the dojo in Okinawa with his instructor. He was in the Army and Special Forces and had 5 tours of duty in Vietnam, and highly decorated.
Wow.
Just got a chest full of medals, and was a lifer in the Army. But after he got out of Vietnam, he just really didn't. A lot of people struggled when they came back to Vietnam.
Right.
And he said the only place he felt safe was in Okinawa. It was the only place he felt like he belonged. So he sold his car for a one-way ticket and went and lived in Okinawa for 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
Came back in 76 or 77, and I started training with him in 78. So I was one of his first students.
Sold his car for a one-way ticket to Okinawa.
That's hardcore.
Yeah, that's hardcore.
That's hardcore.
Like, who was the Spanish dictator and conqueror who just like burned all the ships as soon as they landed? Who was that?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. Total dick move, but it worked.
Yeah. I can't remember it right now either.
Remember which one?
but it's the same thing, only positive and uplifting.
It's like I only have one thing I'm going to do, and that's it.
That's what I'm going to do. Yeah.
So I started training with him in 1978. He's still my instructor to this day. He lives in Seattle.
Wow. That's awesome.
He's retired from instructing, and I now run his association. I'm the head instructor for his association. So I've been his student for, it's 44 years now.
Wow.
And I'm his highest ranking student, and never really took any time off. That's Elisa's one of my black belts. She I think she lives in North Carolina now. She's married to an Army guy. But
awesome. Got lots of people joining in saying Drew, so good stuff.
Well, I tell you, I have a lot of the people who have become closest to me in my life I've met through the martial arts. I mean, you guys know as well as I do. Yep. Some of the best people I've met have been through the martial arts, and honestly, that's one of the things that I look forward to when I go to the tournaments is seeing people. Yep. I've won lots of trophies and won lots of championships and grand championships and whatnot. But I can tell you more about things that happened at tournaments than I can tell you about what I won there.
Right.
There's a couple of tournaments that obviously stand out to me as, when I won or didn't win. But I can tell you more about the things we did at the tournament or going to the tournament or after the tournament. I've had more good times. I've had more good times with that. And awesome. Then I can tell you about, trophies.
Right.
But speaking of trophies, dude, look at this.
I know.
Array behind you right now.
Yeah, there's a picture.
I see a Warrior Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a picture that Andrew Cabalan has of him standing in front of this whole room full of trophies. And I used to have that in this room. This is a dining room in my house. But I ended up getting rid of about 400 or 500 trophies. And I really just kept the ones that were really cool or really high level, or I won a grand champion somewhere, or, I've got, because the Warrior Cup is really cool. I've got some US Open trophies back there that have meaning to me. I've got, there was some of the coolest ones, like Kratos had this big sword.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
If I can show it up top, I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
You can barely see them. There's a couple of surfboards up there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Those are pretty cool.
Okay, so begs to ask the question.
Sure.
I think you're going to say Warrior Cup, but let's say you do, maybe you don't. What is the coolest award of all of them?
The coolest award probably is that Kratos sword. I mean, that thing, you could hit somebody with it and it would kill them. But probably the most prestigious one I have is probably the Warrior Cup.
That's awesome.
Okay, so sometimes your favorite is like the boringest looking one. Which one is your favorite?
I have one. I think it's from 1978 or 1979. It's solid wood with a marble base, and it's about this tall. And I won it. It was like second or third place at some, and I was probably a white belt or a green belt or something. The fact that I still have it, I think, is pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I have another one that's in pieces. It's a second place I got at the US Open in like 1992. I got second to Gabe Renaga. And that was my biggest feat for many years.
Right.
Getting second place at the US Open to Gabe Renaga. Now, of course, since then I've won a lot of, US Open Grand Champion and other things.
But that one actually means more.
That one probably has more meaning to me.
Exactly.
That's what I'm talking, Drew. That's the same for me.
Yeah.
One time I beat David Douglas at the US Open, and I was like, shit, I could retire.
Yeah.
I didn't even win. I took second.
I tell you this, there's a US Open one over here. I don't know which side it's on. It's either on that side or on that side. It's right next to the Warrior Cup. And that was the first time I beat Kevin Thompson. Okay. And that was at the US Open. And that one has a lot of meaning to me too. That was in 2009.
Wow.
Correct.
Yeah.
I understand that. I'm the same way. It's for me. It was Battle of Atlanta. It was like my first Battle of Atlanta. It's like that trophy is just really cool. And I was like 6 years old, and I got third place in sparring. At the battle, it was like, I won't, that's a huge deal. And then it was like when the trophy that I won. And the thing is, they don't give you trophies for runoffs, but it was like I made sure I kept winning that first place trophy. Because in the runoffs, I tied Jimmy Pham. It was like, all right,
wow,
this is a huge deal. You know what I mean? It's like, all right,
those level
up like anything past that trophy,
right?
But that moment means more just because of the moment. And you're right. Like the runoffs, you don't get anything. It's you tied Jimmy. Damn.
Yeah, it's like, hey, it's like, all right.
Well, these are the moments. These are the things that we're talking about, guys.
Yep.
That Warrior Cup is a big deal to me too, because I beat, and I don't know if I really beat them, but I won that day, and there was like 8 of us on stage for that, and it included Caitlin Deschelle, Matt Emig, me, Giselle Segura, Olivia Wicker, oh golly, the guy from Germany, David. I can't remember. I'm sorry to him. But and then
I think what 2 more was it? Oh man.
What year are we talking?
It was 2010.
Okay.
And it who was the guy who won Japanese Okinawan all the time?
Was
at that time?
Wu?
Was it Will?
No, it was after Wu. He won a couple diamond rings. I'm just having a blank. And
Will Cornell. Yeah.
He was up there, and then I remember they're giving out the scores, and I'm like, oh, I got a couple 10s. That's pretty cool. And I really didn't listen to the scores because I'm thinking, in no way I'm beating any of these guys, right? And then they're giving out the scores, and Caitlin leans over to me and she goes, you won. And I'm like, what? Nah. and she's like, yeah, you won. And then they announced my name, and I was like, and you know, it's just like, woo, it's like one of those movies where everything starts doing this, and I was like, oh man.
That's awesome.
And my son was there, which was pretty cool. So
that is cool.
Yeah,
dude, that's
a
pretty
big
damn
deal.
badass.
Yeah, that was the Andrew just put on there. That was the last year that it was in Louisville. So
Okay.
the year prior to that, it was Bluegrass Nationals, AKA Grands. They kind of hybrided them together.
Yeah.
And then the next year, I think it was just AKA, but it was the last year it was in Louisville. And then, and which was good that it was in Louisville because I drove to the tournament and I had my SUV. So I just put the trophy in the back of my car and carried it home.
Nice. You didn't have to get it shipped to you or sent to you.
I took everything out of the back of the car, put the Warrior Cup, and put everything on top of it.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big deal. And it's like something we haven't seen since. And I mean, it's crazy, man. It's a really cool thing that, you know, it's like that stat, you know what I mean? Because, you know, Alex and I always have different things like, what's the one thing here, or who won this or who won that, or when was the first time that, you know, again, really a senior won a Warrior Cup, especially in this new era, right? It was probably different before.
I think I was the oldest. I think I might be the oldest in this newer era to win it.
Right.
You know, because I was 42 at the time.
Okay.
So, and then the next year I almost won. Jarrett Liker beat me by 100th of a point.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And so I could have had two, but yeah, he was amazing. And
and he really turned it on that year. So
yeah, it's amazing how people can level up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember in 2008, 2009, 2010, he really hadn't kind of come into his own. He was doing third and fourth places and in Japanese and Korean, and then all of a sudden he just really turned it on.
Yeah.
Well, he found the formula for him. He found the thing that worked for him.
Exactly.
And he really grabbed onto it and really worked his tail off to get there.
Yeah, he did. So, and he continues to do that. I mean, he continues to go from one thing to the next. So
he's really built a brand for himself, and you got to respect that for sure.
Well, and it hasn't just stayed in NASCA, which is cool. You know what I mean? Like it's gone to the NKF and the WKF and into that premier level of competition. So
going back to my past, I used to do what used to be called WUCO, which is now what is kind of I don't know if it split off and they made WKF, but it was much more political then. I mean, if you were not a Shotokan guy or a Wado guy, you were not going to win on that. Now, a bunch of Sakamoto's guys are winning on that, which is great for Okinawan styles. But you're talking about trophies too. I have my first place trophy was, I think it was 1991, and it was in fighting as a black belt.
Nice.
So I used to fight.
Yeah.
I don't fight anymore. I jacked up my knees pretty good in 94. But and matter of fact, I have two stories. One is
this is the place for stories.
Oh yeah.
One is I was 16 and we were at a tournament in Gainesville, Florida. It was a small tournament, and this is the days when Mike McCoy and Mike Sawyer had a school in Gainesville because they both went to University of Florida, which is where I went. And when you turned 16, you went up to the adults. So I went and fought against Mike McCoy. My first fight as an adult black belt in a competition was against Mike McCoy, and he was probably one of the top-rated super lightweight black belt fighters in the U.S. at the time. He was really good. He did everything. He did weapons, forms, fighting, and he was top-notch at all of them. And I remember thinking, okay, he's not very big, so I've got some reach. I can get to him. And I remember like coming over the top, putting my hand out to push his guard down, and I went over the top with my other hand, and his head just disappeared. and all of a sudden, whap! I get hit in the back of the head with a hook kick, and then the rest of the fight, I didn't even know if I ever saw him. He just pop, 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 and it was over. You know? But in those days, it was first to 3 points. Everything was 1 point.
Right. That's awesome.
Or that could be like today.
Oh, don't get
With
started.
a tournament that happened, maybe not too different than that. Anyway, we'll leave that alone.
Oh yeah, you go to one of those backwoods tournaments. You're still watching the first 3 competitors, and 12 ties, and
it's still like that. Yep, it's still like that. No time limit. There's still a lot of different ones everywhere. I mean, I've even been to tournaments. The best is old. Let's see, veterans tell me it was, they'd have the black belt division, and they'd put a list of names of forms and put it in a hat, and you drew, and you just had to do whatever they said. And that was the thing that happened a lot in Maryland and Northern Virginia tournaments.
They would pull out the name of the form, and you did that form.
Yep.
Well,
I hear that all the time.
Those forms.
Yeah.
You know what? I actually think that's a good idea. I think
cool. If you already know, say, all right, these are the 5 forms we're going to do.
And Korean, I think that's a good idea. If you know going in, hey, you could pull one of these 10 forms.
Hey,
how interesting would that be?
Well,
right?
This year at the International Martial Arts Festival, the one they have at Disney, the one that's put on by David Sklar every year. He used to have it on ESPN3 or whatever. They have a traditional Taekwondo tournament or Tang Soo Do. I'm not sure which one it is. And they have whatever division you're in, you're going to do one form, and they list the form. Yeah, and everybody's doing the same form.
Everyone's doing the same one. Yeah. Well, and like, so we, I'm trying to get acquainted with the AAU Taekwondo rules and stuff. And, the way they do it is, and in most Taekwondo, every style is a little different, but most of them are very similar. You go by your degree, and you have 3 forms that you can do for your degree. And then you can do 1 degree below that. So you have about 6 forms that you can do. You can't do that same form like back to back. So you can go, the most you have to do is at least 3 different forms, but then you can go back and do again. That's kind of the way it is. Now, say if you're like a 5th degree, you can go like down all the way to 2nd degree, I believe, because you have more options and stuff,
Right.
Especially in Taekwondo, that's really hard because, if you just limited to like those top 2, that means you could only do like Moon Moo and like another one, which people at 5th degree usually are in their 40s, so to 50s, and those are very difficult forms. So, and then you also do like, and I think AAU karate is the same way. Both people compete at the same time, and then 2 people are doing their form at the same time. They could be doing different forms. I did
do that one time. I competed in that one time, and I watched it, and I'm like, this is chaos. This is chaos. There's no way this is real life. But it is.
That's how traditional ITF does it. That's how AAU, Taekwondo, and karate does it. So it's interesting.
When I went to the World Tournament in Okinawa in, I think it was 97. It was they built a whole stadium for it, and it's still there. But that was probably one of the biggest tournaments I've ever been to. It was all traditional Okinawan stylists, and there was probably somewhere close to 4,000 competitors, all black belts.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Just in the men's Kata division, there was, I don't know, 600 or 700 of us in the one division. Wow. And so we were in several different rings, and they worked each ring, and then they took the top 6. I think I made it to the 2nd tier, but there were so many people there.
Yeah.
But when you signed up for the tournament, you had to write down which kata you were going to do in which at each tier.
Wow.
So if you picked the wrong one to start,
hey, you're stuck. Yeah.
You saved your best one for last, and you didn't make it to the last round.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Now, see, I'll tell you
strategy.
This. As an organizational perspective, I actually think that's the right thing to do. I think that's the right thing to do. That it's just already assigned, I'm doing this form, right?
Yeah.
And that's the easiest, that's the best, that's the most efficient way. That gives you more organizational, credibility. However,
yeah.
I do love, like I mentioned, the guy, I beat Dave Douglas, but I lost to Anthony Atkins. A guy like that, you had no clue what that guy was going to do.
Right.
You watched him do a form that he won his division. The only thing you knew is he was probably not going to do that same performance for runoffs. And you knew he wasn't going to do the same thing in the finals, right? So there was an excitement to that. It's like, oh, what are we going to see today? What are we going to see?
Yeah.
Nobody knows. So that's exciting. It doesn't make it right.
Right.
Well,
I don't think it's right, but it is exciting.
You look at the guys like Ariel and now Mason Stowell.
Yeah.
They have to do that kind of stuff. They have to decide, okay, I'm going to do this form because I think they can do forms again, but it's got to be it's got to be extenuating circumstances. So they have to be good at more than one form, and they've got to figure out when to do those forms.
Yeah.
So they can look at their bracket and go, okay, this guy is going to do this, so I need to do this to look good against what he's going to do.
Correct. That's why I feel like
strategy.
That's why I feel like traditional challenge, and if we ever get to a Korean challenge, there needs to be something that makes it different than just the regular division, right? And the rules are stricter, but nowadays everyone's doing the same thing for both. So it needs to be either,
but they're not,
a second round.
Stricter. They're not stricter.
No,
they were supposed to be stricter,
correct,
but they're not.
You
ever see anybody that didn't get disqualified?
No, exactly.
No. And they're letting stuff. All these new katas, which I love, by the way. I am not a kata snob. I don't look at Gopai Show and think that's a crap kata. I think it's a great kata.
Right.
But these new katas like Sansai and Anandai and all these other ones that have been introduced recently, and they're supposed to be family katas from the Ruru system.
Right.
They're all made up more recently. I mean, you could make an argument for a couple of them that they could be older, but they are a lot more recent than the katas that we've been doing for years. You know, especially the Shotokan katas and the old Okinawan katas.
Correct.
So all of a sudden we're going to throw them in there because, the guy who trains the world champions said they're old katas is BS.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, I don't have a problem with putting them in there, but we were supposed to be following this set of rules, and now
it's out.
Now those rules don't really matter. We can change them as we go, and there's no ki rule anymore, and there's no kicking above the shoulder rule. All of a sudden, those things don't matter, So,
well,
it's just back to a traditional division. Why do we call it a traditional challenge division? Especially, like you said, when they're doing the same form in both divisions.
And it's not traditional; it's only traditional kata, but it's not called that. It's just called traditional challenge. So,
and if you wanted to really be hard about it, like the kata that everybody was doing for a while, Chatanyara Kusanku, is not Chatanyara's Kusanku. They changed it. There's no jump in Chatanyara's Kusanku.
Right.
They switched around the kata so a bunch of it faces the front.
So that's what everybody does with their.
That was all done more recently in the last 30 or 40 years. So if you wanted to be hard about it, you'd say that one's not traditional either.
Right.
So, I just think it's silly to put on these airs like we're doing the traditional one. No, you're not. They're all made up.
Right. All right, Drew, I got to ask you a question because you're perfect. Because right now you're going down that path. We're going to lean into it. Okay. We've been talking a lot about the traditional division, Japanese division, traditional challenge. We've even should there be a Korean challenge? Or should we just say, the hell with this traditional challenge? Let's just have that be the rules for the Japanese Okinawan division.
Yep.
And that should be the same thing for the Korean division. And I think like the argument against that would be that well, maybe somebody who just made black belt, maybe isn't on that level. Don't we still have a single A option for a lot of these tournaments for black
Most
belt?
of them do.
Some of the tournaments do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think somebody put out there, kind of a compromise to all this was, get rid of the traditional challenge division. Just apply those rules to the Japanese Okinawan division.
Yeah.
Be it. I don't know what I think it would be probably good in the interim to do a Korean challenge division just so we can get good Korean katas being done again.
Yeah.
And
also, Drew, juniors to be able to do Korean. That's the big issue.
That is the only reason I think that's a great idea, is to have juniors do Korean again.
Well, when you have somebody go just learn a kata so they can do it at tournaments, I just learned this Japanese kata so I can do it at tournaments. That's what they call in Okinawa empty kata, because you don't learn any of the subtleties of the nuances of the Okinawan style. Yeah. You just learn how to do those moves, and then they do all this stylized stuff that's not in the kata.
Correct.
It's just people have added it to make it look good in tournaments. So, oh boy, you've got me going.
No.
I love it.
I am a super hardcore traditionalist, but I don't have a problem with people doing what they want for competition. Recently, I was at Mind Challenge, and Alex Reyes recorded my kata, and he posted it on Point Fighter Live. And of course, we got a whole bunch of comments of, well, that's not how it's supposed to be done, and that'll never work on the street. Which I kind of just go, okay, that person doesn't know what they're talking about. But the people say that's not how it's supposed to be done. There's been a lot of people that have gone on there and defended other competitors and said, yeah, but this is a competition, and they're doing it for competition. It's a show, and I would not do that kata the way I do it in competition in the dojo.
Right.
My sensei would come up and smack me in the head and go, "What are you doing?"
Well, what are the differences that you do?
Well, you've got to entertain.
Yeah.
I mean, so you add things, embellish things, make moves bigger, stylize things. You make them more interesting to look at. I used to tell people all the time, and when I would do seminars, I'd say, if you're in a competition, you got to ask yourself, do I want to win? If that's not important to you, just keep doing it the way you're doing. Mm-hmm. But if it's important to you to win, you got to make adjustments for the venue that you're in. So if you're in a venue that is more traditional, then you need to really focus on those more traditional elements. If you're in a venue that's more open, then you got to be a little bit more theatrical. You got to have some facial expression. You've got to make it fun to watch. If I watch somebody do a kata and I'm yawning, great, they've got good technique, but is it really interesting to look at? But if I look at somebody and they're making faces, I tell you, Gabriel Naga was amazing. He's really influenced a lot of how I perform my kata as far as the showmanship aspect of it. Mm-hmm. I stole several things from him, but you got to look at your venue, where you're competing as to what you want to do.
Correct.
When I'm in the dojo, I'm doing straight, looking for power, speed, snap, and effectiveness of technique. I want somebody to look at my kata and go, okay, do I want to stand in front of those techniques? If they're not worried about standing in front of my technique, then my technique isn't very strong.
Correct.
And I've seen a lot of people do that. They just put their arm out there and the technique looks good and they do all the stylized movements, but they don't have any oomph. They don't have any internal power. So their kata is fairly empty.
All right, DDB, I got a question for you. Jeff and I had a conversation last week about who our top 5 Chinese style competitors were. I'm going to hit you with this one.
All right.
Who are your top 5 Japanese kata competitors, or just kata competitors? Top 5.
Oh, well, I put Gabriel Naga in there.
Okay.
Would he be number 1?
Well, they're all on my list for different reasons. I don't know if I'd put any of them at number one. I got to think about that. You kind of put me on the spot here. There was a guy who I really liked watching in WUCO. His name was Michael Milan.
Yes,
he was a famous French competitor, and he did Unsu, and his Unsu was amazing.
Amazing, yeah.
Just all power, snap, really clean.
Yeah.
He's one of the top ones. I tell you right now, Ariel Torres is up there because I watch his workout videos just to get me pumped.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
They make me want to go and train hard.
Yeah, they are. They're crazy.
I'm like, I'm sure. Want to get out there.
He is so strong and so clean. He's just amazing.
And it's crazy to think that over the past 2 months, he's gotten even leaner and stronger, right? Yeah. Since he's been working with Weston. It's insane.
Yeah. So. I would have to say I'd put Kevin Thompson in there somewhere just because of the longevity and endurance that he had and all the things that he was able to do.
That's 3. Wow. We got 2 other spots.
That's 4. He's got 4. He put 4 in there.
That's 4?
Yeah, so he had Michael, Gabe, Ariel, and Kevin.
And Kevin. You only got 1 more spot.
Mm-hmm. Casey Marks Nash. She's probably in there, at least maybe in the top 5, maybe an honorable mention. She's pretty phenomenal.
She is, yeah.
Yeah. And powerful.
Yeah.
She doesn't have empty kata. Her kata's got power behind it. So it's really,
and man, just training with Casey and like Casey's, I've been to her school and she participates in my seminar. She doesn't just, like she's someone who continues to want to.
Oh, she's a martial
learn. She's gonna do. She doesn't stop. You know what I mean? She's gonna find ways to continue to grow and learn. Okay, well, why do you do that? Why? Oh, okay. Like she's so smart. To that. And she, it's awesome to see. So
I'd say a couple others that are kind of bumping in that top 5. I really like Joey Castro's stuff.
Yep. Me too.
He's pretty phenomenal and has been for a long time.
Yep.
Just for the theatrics of it, I like Will Cornell and Scott Wu.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't drawn a blank. The guy who John Su.
Yeah, John Su.
I thought you were going to say John Su earlier.
Yeah. He's in there too.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of great ones, man. I mean, it's cool to see how we've evolved and changed and gone up and down, But again, like you said, with the comments and things, like in our realm, we look at someone, like Jared, or even a lot of people, as far as for me, look to me and say, oh, all right, Jeff's really doing, traditional Korean, forms, in NASCA, like Jared doing traditional Japanese forms. But you put our video out, someone's going to go out and say, that's not really it because you're not doing sine wave or you're not doing this or that. Or why are you adding, this or that? Well, because I'm able to blend the two to make sure that I'm effective. Because there are people that will go, like we say every year, the Jamaicans from the ITF team would show up at US Open, do traditional forms, but would get 9th, 8th, 10th, because it wasn't appealing. It wasn't showing their full potential.
And they would lose their mind.
You have to figure out how to show your full potential. You know what I mean?
When they get upset, they're ready to blow the roof off the building too.
Yeah. Well, and that's unfortunate because I don't know if they understand the venue. Like I was saying, you have to adapt to what you're competing in.
Correct.
And if you've only competed in one style of tournament, then it's going to be difficult for you to adjust when you go to something that's foreign to you.
Right.
But at the same time, Drew, I mentioned this to Jeff might have been a couple months ago. I think that's a fault in our sport, and our niche sport in open sport martial arts competition, in the sense that we say that we're really open to everybody, but we're really kind of not. Like, you have to play our game for an extended period of time to be one of us.
Yeah.
And you're not going to win unless you're one of us.
Right.
You know
and
what
you
I mean?
have seen people step in from nowhere and all of a sudden win.
Right.
But
it's not
that's not very often.
It's not common.
5%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
For
who are
you to be
guys that have done
successful
that?
your first year is rare. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fault. I think we should really do that. I mean, I think some of the outliers are people like you mentioned, Ariel Torres.
Yeah.
He's an outlier.
Yeah.
All right. Like we mentioned last week, Ming Lu. Right.
Right.
But I think those are outliers. That's not the norm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I even have a jaded view of that, because literally, like, my first year as a black belt, I won like 7 of my, my division 7 times, like, and I barely lost the title my first year. The next year I won, in my division as a junior. And even me, like, telling that to my students, it's like, oh, you can do it. Don't worry about this, that. But it's also a little jaded because it happened for me, but most people, it doesn't,
Right. Well, and it depends on when you come in and what division you start in. I mean, if you want to step in and try and win the 18+ division, you better be pretty amazing in any of those divisions, Japanese, Korean, any of them.
This is Kaylin right here. Kaylin Kowalski.
Yeah, we always know she's always Facebook user for some reason. But yeah,
I would agree with her. I mean, we don't do it. We kind of, we're good at just saying, okay, good luck.
Right. Yeah. She said, if you have a hard time explaining to your friends that don't do martial arts how competition works and what is going on there may be a problem.
Yes and no. I mean, there's a lot of different divisions, so there's a lot of opportunity for people to do it. There's pluses and minuses to it. And, when I came back to doing competition pretty heavily, I dabbled in it along the way in the late 90s or early mid 90s, and then early 2000s, went to Battle of Atlanta, US Open, whatever's close to me, but I really wasn't running the circuit. I would get second place or fourth place, or I'd finish behind the seeds. When they started doing that. I remember one year at the US Open, I think it was probably 2002 or something, and I was in the 30 to 39 division, and there was like 30 of us in the division. It was huge.
Yeah.
And I went like 8th or 10th out of those competitors, and I was in first place all the way up till the 4 seeds went, and they were Armando Anselmo, who's from California.
Yeah.
Gary Card from up in New England.
Wow.
Kevin Thompson, and I can't remember who the 4th was, but I ended up getting 5th place behind the 4 seeds.
Right.
But I was thrilled with that because I knew that I wasn't running the circuit, and I was able to beat all the people who also rans like me.
Right.
And then those professional guys who were running the circuit, they all got 1st through 4th. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of okay with that because
you're in it
where I was.
That's
correct.
It's almost like a validation that, like, all right, I belong here.
Right.
Right. Hey, so Drew, let's get into you coming back to the circuit and something that you are, a group that, man, in that, if you were around in that, 2000, I don't know, 2008 till 2013, 14,
12?
15.
13 or 14, I think.
Yeah,
I think 13 was last year.
Full circle, you know what I mean? And so let's explain those years.
Give us the inside scoop on the largest team in history.
It was a pretty big team at the end. Yeah, that's for sure. Well, I tell you how it started. Mr. Kelly, who was the owner of the team, and if those of you don't know, Mr. Kelly was an amazing man. And he ran a construction company, and his daughter, who was in her early teens, was did karate in Jacksonville, which is where I live. And he wanted to take her on the national circuit, and he wanted to take some other people. So he got together with her instructor, a guy named Michael Lee. He's passed away. Rest in peace, Michael Lee. But her instructor and some people from her school, he's like, okay, let's start a team, and I want to pick the best people. And he's like, okay, I'm going to sponsor the team, and I'm going to do it right. And he says, I'm going to get you uniforms. We're going to be Team Full Circle. And so I had, I was going to local tournaments at the time, and they were going to local tournaments. And I heard that they were, I don't remember exactly how it started, but I heard that they were talking about going to some tournaments. And I said, hey, I think I'd like to start competing again nationally. Do you mind if I just, since you're from Jacksonville, I could go along with you, just have a group to hang out with, so I'm not going by myself. And so Mr. Kelly knew me from tournaments, and he and Mike Lee came to me and said, hey, why don't you be on our team? We'll make you a coach for the team. You'll make sure our people are doing good kata and weapons. We know you do good kata and weapons. So we'd like you to do that. And I was like, oh, wow, really? Okay, that sounds great. So we got into this training regimen. Like once a week, I'd go over to Mike's school, and we work on kata and weapons with just the group of, I don't know, it was 5 or 6 people who were on the team. And here is a little cool thing for you. Do you guys know McDojo Life?
Yes.
You ever heard of McDojo Life?
Oh, yeah.
He's hilarious.
That's Rob Ingram.
Right.
And he is from Jacksonville, and he was on the first Full Circle team. What's that?
Are you giving insider info that you shouldn't be?
Well,
No.
Everybody knows his name is Rob. So
well, now
yeah.
we do. Yeah. I didn't know what his name was.
But Rob was on the team the first 2 years.
Wow.
He did chucks, and he fought. He was a good fighter too. Wiry, tall guy. He ended up getting into jiu-jitsu, and he's done a lot of stuff. So he knows his business.
Yeah, he does.
What was his name? Rob
Ingram.
Yeah.
Rob Ingram.
Yeah.
What weight did he fight?
He had to have been lightweight. In our first year when we picked up Dre Graham.
Yep.
And we had a couple other guys. They fought teams.
I think I fought him at the U.S. Open, actually. I think I did, yeah.
Did you?
I think so. That's funny.
But that first year was in 2008, and we traveled most of the circuit that year. I don't know if I won any grands that year, but I started winning a couple divisions about halfway through the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then by 2009, I was starting to win consistently. In 2009 is when we combined with Wasaru.
Wasaru, yeah.
Wasaru said no
picked
more.
Up Mike Conroy and Ross Levine and Hamed and
here's the one great thing about Mike Conroy. If you are a Mike Conroy guy, you have a team. It doesn't matter what you have a team.
Yeah.
Right.
This guy, I don't understand what it is.
He's very loyal.
He always has an inside plug. There's another team somewhere. There's another team. Here's a team. I got it. So if you are a Conroy guy, you got yourself a team.
Well, I know that Mr. Kelly was always looking how to be better.
Yep.
And
there you go.
He was very generous. He, in those first years, he paid for everything: food, lodging, airplane, hotels, everything, tournament, everything.
Right.
And he provided us with gear. He provided us with a bag, sparring gear, all kinds of uniforms, all kinds of stuff. Are we losing Alex?
Yeah, just for a second.
Okay. But he was super generous, and really, we didn't have a want for anything. I mean, we had hoodies and warm-ups and gear bags and shirts galore, and
dude, you guys were I mean, it was cool to see. For me, it was like, wait, where do these guys come from? Okay, it's a Florida team, and then it became they wanted to keep that. It wasn't like when he went to bringing on new people that he got rid of those Florida people. He kept them and took them everywhere. You know, that's what I respect about it, because I've seen some teams that started in a certain area and then eventually just kind of branched off to other things and kind of didn't keep the original purpose of what their team was, right?
Right.
But for him, it was more of, hey, I want to bring these guys in to make who we got better.
Yep.
And that's what they did, you know. And a lot of those guys from that area, after being around Conroy and Ross and those guys, really became, you know, stronger competitors, you know. So pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, in the early days, we had some really good. He brought on some really good competitors. Mel Ortiz,
Yes.
Dre Graham,
Right.
Houston Thomas, Rusty
Yes.
Clark, Dylan Suarez. Those were all guys who were on the team very early on,
Very early. Yep.
and really developed into. Or some of them were pretty good to start with. I mean, I remember
Right.
watching Mel Ortiz as a junior, and I think we were at may have been Battle of Atlanta or something, and she was down by 2 points. She spun hook, kicked this girl in the head in the last second, and ended up winning the match or something. I remember, but
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing, the people. And then when we combined with Wassaru, we picked up all their people, and then I remember Mr. Kelly saying, "My stated goal is to beat Paul Mitchell."
Yep.
Done.
Yeah, and then it became Full Circle versus All Stars, because that's when All Stars really came into being.
Yep.
And that was our big rivalry. Of course, we, you know, whenever we got the chance, we were trying to beat Paul Mitchell, but really All Stars and Full Circle were the top two teams at that time. I mean, there were other great teams, so don't get me wrong, but the top two consistent winning teams at that time for those 3 or 4 years was Full Circle and All Stars.
Oh no, I'll tell you now, Full Circle was the best team.
Yeah.
Because and here's one of the best things about that is you had multiple guys who could anchor.
Yeah.
Especially against All Stars at the time. You had multiple guys who could anchor. Because you had Ross Levine, right? Mm-hmm. Because you knew if you were fighting All Stars, you gotta go against Ray.
Gotta go against Raymond.
If you got a 3, 4, 5 point lead, that might not be safe.
Yep.
Right. So you
got to tell you our best anchor.
I say it
was probably Jason Grenier.
Yep.
He was so unorthodox that I don't know if Jason really had an answer for him. It was good if you had a lead, you put Jason Grenier in there because you knew Jason was going to hold the lead. He wasn't going to allow Ray to score on him very much. Not that, and I do remember times when Jason outright beat Ray in the final match. You know, beat him in points. So
I don't know about that much.
Well, I do remember a couple. New England Open one year we did. I mean, he did. So,
but there you go. You got Jason Grenier. You got Ross Levine. I mean,
Ryan McGriff.
Hamid's a fantastic anchor. Not against Ray.
No. I'm just saying, just that team.
Oh, anchors.
Well, there were times when we had two teams.
Right.
Dude,
we had Full Circle Gold and Full Circle White or Red or black or whatever.
Look at the names we're leaving out. We're leaving out Justin Ortiz. Evan Walker. Cass Sigmund.
Yeah.
Sam Gagnon. Look at all the names we're leaving out. You guys robbed
Renee Perot. He was on the team early.
Yep. Renee. Yep.
Ryan McGriff.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Forgot about McGriff.
Ryan McGriff.
Ryan McGriff. He was amazing. His legs were amazing. We even had Jason Borelli for a while. He was off and on the team a couple times.
Yeah.
I remember we had
and even Nico.
Trevor Nash was on the team for a short period.
Yeah, short period. Yeah, Trevor Nash, you know. Yeah, so I mean there was so much, man. Like it was a really cool team, a great time to be around the sport. And they went to different events. They tried to go everywhere, So
went to NBL. Really cool. Yep. We went to Mr. Kelly was not afraid to go anywhere.
Yep.
I got a question for you about the team. With a team that large, with that many personalities, who's the funniest dude on the team?
Cass Sigmund did some great impressions.
Yes.
He was pretty
Cass
funny.
is hilarious.
He would do
What was your
impression
favorite? 'Cause he
of
did.
Jason Grenier.
I think there's like a video of him doing.
Yeah, I think there is. They were in
You're gonna
Europe
have
or
to share
something.
that.
And
Someone
yeah,
find it and share it.
yeah, that's pretty good. But yeah, there was some really top-notch people on the team. Becca Ross was on the team at one point. Claire Kokoza, her husband David, Noemi Tremblay, who's Renee's wife. Sam had a couple of his students who were on the team who were really good female fighters. We had Nicole Pellin was on the team for a while,
right?
For about 2-3 years. I mean, the team was huge. I think in 2011, I have a picture from the U.S. Open, and I don't know, there's probably 25 people in the picture, and they're all like people you would recognize, people who are legit.
Dude, I got insider info on this. I don't know if you know about this, Drew, but if the team had lasted another few months, Michael Page was about to be on that team.
I'm not surprised. Mr. Kelly was trying to do a deal with the Corrali.
Wow.
He was trying to bring their people onto the team.
Yeah, I'd heard that before too. I've heard that before too.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was good friends with
Estevan?
With Corrali, yeah.
Yep. Wow.
Yep. He was even good friends with
he was friends with everybody. Who doesn't like Mike? Who doesn't like him?
Who doesn't like what?
Mr.
Tom
Kelly.
Yeah. Kelly was great. Yeah.
Yeah. Tom Kelly was amazing. Yeah. He is amazing.
He is.
He is amazing.
He is
but
amazing.
in those years, he did a lot for us.
Sight of those overalls, which should have their own personality.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to show up at a tournament with all of us wearing overalls one time, but we couldn't make it happen.
That would have been awesome.
That needs to happen.
All right. So, Drew, I know before we get going, what are you currently doing? And let's talk about the U.S. martial arts team that you are a part of and your role in that.
Well, I'm still competing a little bit. I just recently went to the Mayan Challenge and I won a couple divisions there. I lost to Connor Chastain in both grands. I felt like I should have won the Kata Grand, but would I not be a good competitor if I didn't think I should have won?
Right.
Of course, I'm more than twice their age, most of the guys who I competed against.
Pretty much, yeah.
Can't be too disappointed with it. I'm still training, so I feel good. As far as the U.S. team, every 2 years, the World Martial Arts Games takes place. Of course, in 2021, we didn't have one because of the pandemic. So the last one was in London in 2019, and I was one of the regional coaches for the team. And I think we took about 100 athletes over there. Everybody did really well. And then now, for the upcoming one next year, which is in 2023, it's going to be in Daytona Beach at the Ocean Center where they used to hold the Gator Nationals. And it's going to be at the end of July, 29th, 30th, and 31st. And the U.S. team is hosting it. And now I am the head coach of the U.S. team.
Awesome.
Get it.
And I have been to several of the World Games. My first one was in 2009 in Australia. And I think we had maybe 12 athletes that went to that one. Of course, it was not cheap trip.
Right.
Fantastic trip, though. And, we were talking earlier about going, the difference between going to one of those tournaments versus going to like Diamonds or something like that.
Correct.
Jeff's got to talk about that too, by the way.
Yeah.
And I think for professional competitors who are running the circuit, going to Diamonds, going to U.S. Open, going to Battle of Atlanta is definitely something you should be doing because that's your goal.
Right.
I think for 90% of the other people doing martial arts, one of those other ones is a better fit for you, like WKU or WKC or the World Games.
Yeah.
Because it's something you can train for and get ready for, and you don't have to work up to it like you would, because like when I did NASCA, when I got back into NASCA in 2008, it took me almost a year to start winning consistently.
Correct.
These tournaments, you only have one shot.
Right.
So you want to train for those. And, the good thing about the World Games is you don't have to be a black belt to compete. There's underbelt. There's all underbelt divisions.
That's great.
Plus, the World Games is cool too because they have underbelt and black belt divisions for Korean. Mm-hmm. They have it for Japanese Okinawan, not just the black belts, but the underbelts too. They have it for Chinese.
That's great.
So they're separated even in the underbelts by Chinese,
style.
Korean,
Japanese.
And of course they have the musical and creative stuff as well.
That's awesome.
But we're starting to build the team now, and it works on a slightly different model than, say, WKC. We don't have a tournament that you go compete in to get a spot on the team.
Right.
We have coaches all over the U.S. Right now we have probably 20 different coaches, maybe a little bit more than that. I'll have to go back and look at my list. But we have 20 or so coaches now, and we're looking for more because, you shouldn't have to drive 5 hours to go train with somebody.
Right.
And that's our model, is that we want to build the team by having them train together once a month. And so if we have a coach in your area, or if it's somebody I know, I'm like, hey, I've reached out to a couple of people I've competed with and known for years. And I say, hey, do you want to be a coach on the team? You can get people around you to compete. You can be the coach for that area. Mm-hmm. Then, the idea is that we build that kind of camaraderie and team atmosphere. And then we have a good, strong team when we show up to the games. And there's really nothing like going and standing on a podium and getting a gold medal and having the flag draped over your shoulders.
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
very different than getting a place at Diamonds.
Right.
There's nothing like getting a place at Diamonds.
Right.
But this is a whole different feeling.
Correct.
And you don't have to be a professional to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's really cool. And that was something that we were talking about before was, I have a couple of students that are going to WKU, and then they're asking, well, you're not going over there. No, I'm going to the Diamonds. But also part of it was, WKU is a week long. I have certain things with my style I have a belt test that I have that next weekend. So I have a lot of things going on, but also trying to explain to them how big Diamonds is, and how in many ways, to me this year, at least, that's more important to me. Now in the past, doesn't mean don't go to this or that. Cause I have WKA titles that I've won and I've gone overseas, and, next year I like to do either WKU, WKC, and even that, so
it's a complicated conversation, but it's right. It's true to say, and it's hard. It sometimes sounds funny to say, you should go do this. Right. Not me. I'm here. And it sounds like you're speaking out of both sides of your mouth, but you kind of are, but you're right in both ways that you're talking.
Right.
It's so weird. But yes, they should get, like Drew was saying, they should get the world experience to understand, listen, it is bigger than just this area. However, for what Jeff is saying, this area, for what he's talking about, the best of the top competition, it is in this area. It is condensed, and they're all going to be right there. And if he gets that ring, that's it, man. That's it.
Right.
That's the only thing I haven't won is a diamond ring. I'll tell you that story. I was in 2010 when I won the Warrior Cup. I'm not exactly sure, and somebody like Eric Tremblay might tell you different, or Andrew Cabalan. But I think I won almost every grand in both kata and weapons for 30 plus that year. And I was so far ahead in points, I didn't go to diamonds.
Stop.
And this was the first year they gave the 30 plus diamond ring.
Year.
Yeah.
And I didn't know they were going to do it, or else I would have gone.
Nobody knew. I didn't know.
And Eric Tremblay won. Now, that's not to slight Eric Tremblay. He could have beaten me
Right.
there, but I didn't even
But
go.
you didn't even know.
Right,
You didn't
didn't
even
go,
put
yeah.
yourself in the position.
So
to do
I'm
it.
kicking myself for that, because the next year, 2011, I lost by 100th of a point to Mike Welch.
Yeah.
Well, I got you one
And
even
he
better.
won the diamond ring.
Yeah.
Here, listen to this. You might hate me for this one. 2011, because I didn't know that they were going to do that in 2010. So in 2010, I'm like, what? Because I wasn't 30 yet at that point, right? In 2011, I was 30, and I'm like, shit, I'm going to do this. I'm going to beat Derrick Tremblay. And I did beat Derrick Tremblay in the division, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to win me a ring. And Mike Welch is right next to me. Mike Welch just turned 30 like days before that.
Yeah.
Listen to this conversation. You're probably not going to be happy with me, right? So Mike is there. I just heard that he turned 30. I'm like, oh man, are you in the division? He's like, nah, I didn't do it. I just did teams, and we did the demo. And I'm like, they're giving a ring for 30 bucks. And he's like, what, they are? And I'm like, yeah, man. And he goes, okay, I'm going to go register. And immediately I went, what the hell did I just do? What did I just do?
No, I'm not mad at you for that.
I lost.
But I've beaten Mike before, and I've lost to him. I've beaten him once or twice in grands. Of course, we didn't meet a whole bunch of times because he didn't compete consistently. But when he did great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I beat him at the U.S. Open that year, or maybe I don't remember. Maybe it was a couple of years later, because after 2011, I started to compete down. I was competing in 2012 and 2013. I dropped down to the 18 plus grands.
Stop.
Right.
And did those instead of doing the 30 plus grands, because
of the way they were doing it too.
Well, no slight to the executive competitors, but I was competing against them all the time.
Right.
And I just wanted to try and, all right, can I do it?
Right.
Because I remember watching Gabe Renaga do it. He dropped down and compete against the 18 plus guys. And I won a few like traditional grands, traditional weapons grands, or traditional forms grands. Of course, they didn't separate them out they separated them out money wise. Right. But they didn't separate them out on stage. You just got the money based on what your scores were.
Correct.
So I won some overall traditional grands, forms and weapons, even won it at diamonds one year, but I never won the diamond ring.
Which, you know what? I wasn't sure if I liked that. Honestly, now I like that setup better than what we have now, of doing it, taking everyone to stage as an overall, and then also giving the money based on the scores. Because again, you're more than one person is getting money. If you make it to stage, pretty much unless you completely bomb, you're getting money somehow for making the stage. You know what I mean? And I thought, to me, that was one of the better ways of doing it.
But wait, but the separation of rings. Are you still a fan of that?
Am I?
don't know.
Jeff?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. But I do think that there needs to be an overall. Yeah.
18 and 30, or
between 18 and 30. Between the 18 and 30,
traditional,
I think that's a good idea.
Traditional and open. Yeah.
Between the traditional.
No, I think it should still be the overall, because it has more meaning. It's like the Warrior Cup.
Right.
It's the overall, and it's a special thing. Go ahead and do the money for the traditional grands and the CMX grands, but then do those winners against each other and have a diamond for that.
Right.
Yeah. And you know what? Here's the thing. I don't even see, and this might sound really strange, but I don't know what's wrong with taking, you do the traditional grand, you do what's called CMX grand, you take the top two of them, you put them together, and now you have 4 people for that. Yeah. That's basically the same as a runoff, right? Isn't that the same as a runoff?
Wouldn't you be mad though if you beat that person and then you lost to them in the overall?
But that's what happens in a runoff.
But I mean, that's what happens in a runoff.
That's what happens in a runoff.
But there's not usually runoffs anymore.
We're basically doing the grand. We're doing that right there.
Yeah.
Right.
But see, I don't like how the problem is right now, Alex. The problem is right now they've tried to do that in certain events, but I don't like the one versus, like just, one person versus the other.
Yeah.
I don't like
it
this
doesn't
one.
work. I'd
It
rather
doesn't
like
just
work.
take
when there's
everybody,
4 or
take
5.
everyone and then portion it out, I think it's better, and it shouldn't just be it should be for extra money, but to me, it's more fun to see more people.
Wait a
honestly.
minute, Jeff. Are you
I agree.
saying you should just take all the 18 plus divisional winners and just say, have at it?
I mean, I think so.
I don't
I think
disagree
so. If you're
with
going to
it.
have it that way,
But really, if you have 4 or 5 up there versus 2 or 3, is it that much longer?
What's the difference? Right. What's the difference?
Exactly.
I'm with you. So then how many would that be? Let's say we'd have the musical, we'd have extreme, we'd have creative, we'd have Japanese,
a lot.
We'd have Chinese, we'd have Korean.
We have Kempo, and we have traditional challenge. So that's
Kempo.
7. That's a lot.
No, traditional challenge doesn't get put in there.
Well, it does.
But it doesn't.
But typically, your Japanese is going to be your traditional challenge winner, typically.
Right.
And they're probably going to have one person win 2 of those CMX divisions.
Correct. That's
maybe
usually
3.
what happens. Yeah.
So you could end up, what's that, 7?
You could end up with 4 or 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then
I mean, again, I grew up and we would have 14 in the grands, and all of us go to stage. You know what I mean? So I mean that there would be when they would split boys and girls at compete nationals, and they would put 14 of us in there. And you know what? It was a good grand. And now if they didn't split boys and girls, then it would be 7. That's the amount. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think it's just put on a show and make it more fun. I don't like right now where I'm seeing more demos than anything. Demos are cool, but if everyone just knows it's a demo, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But what are we doing?
But it's just
I don't like the demos because people don't push as hard.
Exactly. Like we want to see like what competition looks like.
Yeah.
So the demo is great if you want to do a competition with it. All right, that's cool, right? It doesn't make sense to me. Demonstration, competition, winner. It doesn't make sense to me. But I all right, that's fine. But now for the finals, have it open the show, have it be an intermission, which there's no point for anymore, right? So have it open the show and be done with it. This is the winner. Done.
Right. No, we're not talking. Yeah, but we were not talking about team demo, Alex. We're talking about like there's been so many times where they do the runoff and they've won all the grands.
Oh, yeah, that's pointless.
Yeah,
like Isabella Nikolai will win all the divisions, and she's up there just by herself because she won all the CMX and all the.
What else are you gonna? Right, if it's just CMX,
well, yeah.
Now what else do you do? So then it's like, listen, what that's doing is just exposing the bad format that you have.
Yeah,
right. That now just shows you should not be separating this and putting them all in the finals like that, right?
Well,
we're beating a dead horse.
I think if you're gonna do that, just don't do the demo. Just bring the person up there and present them their award. I think they ought to do that for seniors too. I think if you're not going to have them on stage, if you're not going to have them on stage, at least bring them up and say these people won today and this.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, at least give them something, because that's one of the big reasons why I dropped down in those couple of years when they allowed it.
Right.
Was because I made more money teaching private lessons than I made winning grands.
Right. Exactly.
And if I'm not on stage, who's going to want a private lesson from me?
Correct. And that's an issue I'm having now is that too. It's just they've been either running it off early, and I haven't been on stage all year, even though, again, Alex and I talked the days like I did the math this year. It's like in 10 years, I've lost Korean forms in any circuit twice. You know what I mean? Like, it's like,
say it again.
I'm not gonna say it again. You can say it later. But you know what I mean? Yeah.
He lost the Korean division 2 times.
Right.
What?
So, but again, not always on stage, and so trying to do that, because again, like you said, it's the more they see you, is that, and again, you can do nowadays we got a little bit different format with how big social media is, Instagram and stuff. You can put your stuff out there in different ways and get that, but it's still
it's
still different when you get on stage and when they see you win. It's just something different. So
because I was doing private lessons for lots of people, including Dallas Liu and Kieran Tamandong and Mr. Chen's daughter, Amanda Chen. So lots of people I did private lessons for, and that was because I was on stage.
Correct.
It wasn't because I was winning the 40 plus
senior grand. Right.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, they didn't know it was going on. They didn't see it. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And people always talk about some people starting the traditional trend. I'm the first one.
Yeah. Exactly.
I won the Warrior Cup with it before any of those guys did.
That's right. I love it.
I started this traditional shit.
I want to say one more thing.
Yeah, one more thing.
If anybody is out there and they know me and are interested in helping out with the U.S. team, would like to start training athletes in your area, please DM me and let me know, and we'll talk about it and see how you can fit into the organization, see if we can't get you started. Or if we've already got somebody in your area that's doing a group that we can plug you into. We really like to have a large U.S. team. We're bringing in athletes from, Europe and South America, Puerto Rico, Mexico, Canada, all over. So we really like to have a good event, and we'd really like the U.S. to dominate. So we need a big team for that. So
love it,
really
man.
Trying to grow it between now and next.
What areas are you thinking like, hey, this area of the U.S. I'm looking at you?
Well, I need more in the Midwest, more on the West Coast. We do have somebody in the Pacific Northwest, but we don't have much in the West or in the Midwest. Of course, we've got people up and down the East Coast, but there's room for more.
Right. What about Texas?
Texas, we have a couple, but we could use more. Texas is pretty big.
Cool. Wow, I heard. Everything's big in Texas.
Oh man.
Yeah,
I love it.
Unfortunately, guys, I'm not going to Diamonds this year. My son is playing college football. He's a starting tight end for his team. I'll be flying to Colorado to watch him play that week.
Where is he? What's his school?
He's at a smaller Division II school called Adams State in Southern Colorado.
Okay.
He's doing his grad work there, and they
what city is that in?
Huh?
What city is that in?
It's in Alamosa, which is in Southern Colorado. It's not a big school, but they offered to pay his whole way, and I'm all for that, so I don't have to pay for it.
You know what? Colorado is a really cool area.
It is beautiful. I was just there last weekend to watch another game. And
nobody is from Colorado. Everybody ends up in Colorado.
It is gorgeous out there. Really, it's really beautiful.
I love
Colorado right now.
Highly recommend going to Colorado Springs or Denver. There's lots to do, and it's beautiful there. Big
time. Oh man, we went a little overboard. We had a blast talking. This has been so much fun.
Me too, guys. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah,
dude,
man.
Thanks for being a part of it. You've been an insider since day one.
Yes.
Loving it. Let's give a shout out to a couple of people who are chiming in here. Jared said he's been listening for a while. Yep. Cool. Thanks for chiming in. My man Ray, dude, you're funny with the jokes, homie.
I love it.
All right. This has been another episode of Inside Scoop without Jeff. I am Alex Dingman.
I'm Jeff Doss. See you guys next week. Thanks, Drew.
Thank you.